there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. Today on CookieCast, it's the darkest timeline, and I think the first question we have to ask ourselves is, how can a man who's got nothing to talk about talk for an hour and 13 minutes? Anybody who's listened to this podcast for a long time has been asking themselves that question for a while now. However, we're talking anniversaries, a trip to the woods, and then it's straight into the entertainment. We're not messing around this week. We're not hanging around. We've got an hour and 13 minutes of other stuff to talk about, apparently. A couple of TV shows, a movie, a couple of technology items, and then what is possibly the biggest game update of the year. Oh, I know. Before we start, please do consider like, share, subscribe and comment. Leave a review where you can leave a review. Obviously the big one for me, big one for all of us here at CookieCast, is if you could share the podcast around. If you've got a friend who likes podcasts, even if you just say, check it out, it might not be for you, but just check it out. We'd appreciate that. Right, let's get started. Here we go. This is CookieCast, the darkest timeline. Hello. How we diddling? How we doing? How is it? We good? I say this every year. I've probably said it already this year. But I've just had to turn the giant fan off to be able to record the podcast so that it's not causing any interference, making loud noise, etc., etc. Honestly, if you are one of the people that says that 30-degree heat is, oh, isn't it lovely, and a whole host of other things like that, then I think you might have a problem. And I think you might need to get it checked out. It's just the worst. It's just the worst. I fear people who say that this is good. A few other things to go through. You know, that's kind of why there's a podcast and all that. And I recently, motherfucking. And I recently, there's been conversations about trimming the fat on the podcast. There's been a variety of different things and reasons and etc. etc. One of those is because of something that I have experienced previously, where I feel like self-editing and self-censoring, things like that, gets out of hand, and ultimately the podcast just turns into me not talking about stuff, not saying stuff, because of the fear of one of the 10 people that actually listens to it goes, oh, you can't be saying that. Oh, no, can't say that. Oh dear. Oh, I can't believe you said that. But then I work on the principle it makes for not great podcasting. So, until I can make a decision as far as that side of things, I have found myself cutting stuff out. For better or worse. For example, I've got a couple of things to talk about this week, and one of them is probably going to be really quick, whereas the other might not be. Obviously, it will help because it's, that's right, it's 9 o'clock in the evening and it's 22 degrees. And I'm sure you can imagine what that meant it was earlier today. I got in the car earlier and the car told me it was 32 degrees. Now, admittedly, the car was wrong, but only by a handful of degrees. So, where have we been since the last week? Oh, no, that's not words. What's happened in the last week? Well, less than a week ago, another celebration in the house. Not a birthday, not a parent day, not one of those. In fact, an anniversary, which you could argue birthdays are anniversaries. I think that's the definition, isn't it? You only have one birthday, but many anniversaries if you're lucky. But no, this was mine and Leanne's anniversary, came and went. We celebrated in the way that people who have been in long-term relationships celebrate, by spending as little time together as possible. And once we got into the evening, like our sort of time, we then proceeded to spend zero time together. That was obviously largely to do with the fact that, we've just been together a really long time, and the last thing you want to do is spend time with the other person. No, it was a series of other reasons. Those other reasons was 4 children and a podcast. If you haven't listened to it or watched it by now, what are you doing with your time? But I was a guest on the Formula 1 podcast, on the Straight to the Apex podcast. I covered it at the time. It was a big thing for me. I genuinely consider myself to be a fan of the podcast, even if that's not for the Formula 1 side of it, which in some ways is a little weird. I love the bants. I love the crack. I was really happy to be a part of that. So yes, by the time you get this, it will have been out 2 or 3 weeks. But look out for that one. It was fun. I enjoyed it. It was interspersed with some fairly random questions, and I love a random question. So going back to our anniversary. I wrote a heartfelt card. I'd been planning it for weeks. Leanne opened it. She read it. She had a little chuckle because it was a little inside joke. She then promptly went, "I can't put that up anywhere. I'm going to have to hide it somewhere." And I knew I'd achieved my goal. We'd both had some nice gifts. I bought her a tree. Some trainers that she'd been after, CD, t-shirt. I've been going big on presents this year. I think it's more to do with. This is gonna sound awful, but you know the whole do unto others. That's not the reason. The reason I've been going hard in the paint, going big on gifts this year, is the older I get, the more I think there is to celebrate. I covered this when I had my birthday and like turning 44, Mr. 44. Something that's been weighing on my mind. It will upset me, so I'll try and keep it together for your sake. Something that's been weighing on my mind, I think a little more than I'd like to admit, is many years ago I had a friend, somebody who I looked up to and respected immensely. A person who was a genuinely nice, decent person. Somebody I just thoroughly enjoyed being around. And they passed away. Not much older than I am now, leaving 2 children, wife, etc. And it's always weighed on me. It's always been one of those things where I've been like, why does it have to be the good ones that get taken early, that get taken too soon? And yes, I know, there's that aspect. It's probably something that I don't have to worry about. I get it. But yeah, when you get to certain ages, like I said, Chadwick Boseman passing at the age I was at the time and stuff like that. So I think when you get to a certain point in life, you get to a certain age, get to a certain celebration of things, you should celebrate them more. I mean, like I said, me and Lan celebrated our anniversary by spending 0 time together, all day and all evening. And both of us were like, oh, we'll do something at the weekend. Which promptly followed spending very little time together at the weekend. Good times all around. I'm sure you can agree. Question is, after all these years, do you need to spend time together? But yes, it was... I feel fortunate to have got this far. I did spend some time casting back through the years, all the way back to the start. I was 20, and barely had a clue. And 24 years later, not a lot has changed in that respect. I kept saying to people, one more year and I'll have got less for murder. Because these are the things you're supposed to say. I had a week off work and I went back to work and I said, I've come back to work for a break. And I genuinely meant it until the point in time I realised I've had a week off work and apparently the whole place stops turning. Honestly, it was like they were waiting for me at the door. I walked in, I logged on and went, oh, that's a steaming pile of horse shit. And then everybody was like, oh, you're back. You can do my work for me. It's been very much one of those days today. A day of me going, why is my job description do other people's work because they can't be bothered? Honestly, should probably address that at some point in time, but hey. So yes, gone through X number of jobs in those years. Not as many as you might think. I've been doing my current one for 18 years, so not loads of jobs. I had a point in time where I went through 4 jobs in a year or something, but they weren't good jobs, so that's that, innit? But yes, it's been a time for reflection, very much like my birthday. Having them both in the same month, having that whole Father's Day, birthday, etc., sort of issue of. You never quite know what to expect. So, yes. Had a week off, like I say. Variety of different things. One of the highlights being discovered that my older children seem to have a very weird sort of affinity with golf. Like they seem to be able to do aspects of it. I keep saying to my eldest, I'm like, do you think it's like genetic? Like, I played a shit ton of golf before my eldest was born. Like, an insane amount of golf before my eldest was born. And yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. Does it pass on like that? I mean, I was rubbish at golf, so I don't know how that works. Took my daughters shopping. Thought less of it than it actually turned out to be. There was a lot of I was about to say clothes shopping, but no, clothes shopping was a whole other thing. A lot of jewellery, makeup-esque shopping. One of my daughters is absolutely adamant she wants her ears pierced. I am in the camp of if it was up to me, darling, I would take you and do it now. Camp, but hey ho. I'm trying to think some of the other stuff. My eldest went for a sleepover, so it was a bit of a kind of a 2-day sort of thing. Went to the cinema, which I will talk about. It was a bit of a yeah. However, one of the places we went last Thursday, we've had this sort of place in mind to go, and I've always said a few things about it. One, it's insanely expensive to go. Two, the weird thing is that even though it's so ridiculously expensive to go, it's always super busy. Like, you have to book to go, which is a bit weird. And because of those two things, we've never gone. However, Leanne, in her ultimate money-saving ways, managed to get some half-price tickets for us to go. And we booked a time slot and just sort of did that kind of, we will go and see how we got on. Interestingly enough, like I said, it is horrifically expensive to go. And when we got there, there was one other car in the car park. So, who knows if there's a connection there. We went to the Fairy Woods. Haven't written the stupid name down. 2 seconds. Because I wouldn't want to tell you wrong. Fairy Woods. Near me. That'd be a good start. Northwood Trail. Fairy Sanctuary near York. There you go. One of those been very much on the docket, but also kind of in the camp of never really thought we'd go because of previously mentioned reasons. But we went and we took an extra child with us. My eldest brought her friend. And away we go. And we had all the children and an extra child, which meant we couldn't take the push chair, which towards the back end of the walk, everybody was regretting. Whole other thing. You know when somebody says the phrase, my son is very much a boy, and you go, I mean, that's probably the dumbest thing I've ever heard anyone say. Yeah, my son is very much a boy. As a father who has raised partially 3 girls, or I was in the process of raising 3 girls, my son is very much a boy. In some ways. In other ways, not so much. When you have to help him to do up his sister's high heels, yeah, you go like, well, that's what happens when you've got 3 sisters. So, We go to the fairy woods. I've heard nothing but good reviews. Nothing but good stuff. For people who have been, when there's been like those situations where I've been like, oh yeah, I'd love to go there, but it's really expensive. Did I mention it's expensive? I don't know if I covered it. We walk up and instantly you can see the appeal. We had a difficulty finding it. I had to do some backwards and forwards up and down the road. And one of those not really signpost kind of, well, no, we did drive past it and have to reverse down, those 60 mile an hour back roads. But, there was nothing coming. So we park. The entrance, very unassuming. Other than the fact that through various different places, there were lights like woven through the trees and the branches. Super woody sort of area. Once we got there, I'd already done I ain't seeing any woods. That very quickly changed. So it was like, cool. And you go in and there's like a hole in the wall kind of system, which is attached to cafe/restaurant, which is like your last bit. And they go through the rules, which there are a lot of. You can't take any food into the sanctuary, as they were referring to it, and a variety of other things. The food one being the main one. And we had the no push chair, so my son was walking situation. Couple of things. One, I set my watch to do a walk because I'm like, it's walk in the woods. I looked at the map. The map was big. The walk itself is less than a mile, yet feels like 3.5. I honestly wondered whether my map app thing was doing its job. And also, what I can say is this, having gone back and looked through the map app, there is no record. There is no map. Potentially because it's out there in the middle of the woods, and potentially because it was just wrong. So, something to bear in mind if you're planning on going to the fairy woods. So, we get our rules, we get our map, and away we go. Now, very much one of those, know your audience. This was going to be geared towards the middle two children. They're the right age for it, they're the right... they have the right ability of excitement to appreciate it, and everything in between. My eldest, maybe a touch past for her, but that seems to be starting to become a bit of a theme at the moment. Something that we're looking at maybe having to address in the future. So there's that. And to be honest, my son just liked getting out in the woods for a walk. Immediately you're hit with, like when you walk in even to the entrance, they've got the fairy doors on the trees, and you're like, straight away you're like, this is going to be good. This is going to be good. I like this already. Like, somebody's obviously put the time and the craft into it. And that was before we even walked essentially through the door. So off we go, and we find this, like, it's set out like a little village. There's obviously audio being played, like there's a party going on inside one of the little houses. Straight away, I'm like, that's cool. And then there was all sorts of stuff. A dragon's nest, this massive nest with eggs in, a giant sword suspended in the trees, like this, like, almost like a black lagoon type thing. More of these massive swords. There were like these huge wood carvings. There was one that looked like Mr. Tumnus from Lion Witch and the Wardrobe. There was a lamp post in the middle of the woods that's apparently some sort of joke from the Fairy Queen. There was a maze which we went and did. I often feel that like if these sorts of places have a maze, they're often very easy because you have to accommodate all sort of skill levels. This wasn't. This was the sort of maze that was like, yeah, we'll let you go the wrong way for a little while before you realise you've gone the wrong way. Was that kind of system. So, yeah. We did that. Each little sort of section's got a sign that tells you what it's about. There were another few sections that had like lights woven through the trees, would give it sort of an amazing effect. There was a point where I was saying to a couple of the children, I was like, "Can you hear a bell?" No, if I'm honest, I thought it was the sound of like a wheel, like somebody had brought a pushchair with them, sort of thing, and they had a squeaky wheel. But when we walked a bit further up, there was the sound of a bell. It was a recording sort of thing, but there was some of the fairy house sort of craftsmanship was amazing. Some of them had like stairs going all the way around a tree. Some parts were like a suspended village in the treetops, sort of Ewok-esque, but for fairies. There was 2 or 3 of these huge, like these dragon nests. One had like the sounds of like what it might be like a sleeping dragon. So I had like a couple of the children sort of like tiptoeing through, and then when it made a noise like it was stirring, we were like pause and stuff. There were these huge sort of thrones for the fairy king and queen. One of those things. Fantastic experience. Well worth it. We were very much in that camp of we would absolutely come back here, but it's really expensive. Yeah, just so you'd have to look at getting the cheap tickets, and even then, you know, half price, but for 6, 7. Yeah, 7 of us, half price tickets. Even that was, you know, it's still not cheap. It's just cheaper. So, yeah, you get back and they tell you there's a museum, and I'm like, fairy museum could be interesting. I'd taken my youngest daughter to the toilet, came back. A lot of the other kids were like, hey, there's something cool in the museum. I'm like, well, I would hope that it was all cool, but let's go and look. And ultimately, it's just a lot of like little dresses and things in cabinets and this, that, and the other. They were like, oh, there's a secret room. I'm like, there's a secret room, I'm sure. So they're like, no, there is. I'm like, go over to the wardrobe and open the doors. And I was like, okay, it's going to be, you open the doors and inside is like a wardrobe with like, I don't know, a painting at the back, or like, there's like a tiny little, I imagine like doll's house furniture type thing or something like that. You open the wardrobe, which opens out into another room where you go in and they've done like a fairy kingdom inside this room. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Just things like that, these touches where you're just like, I think if I'm honest, I think it's a situation where I was a bit like, this could so easily be shit. This could so easily be like, I've spent all this money and it's not good. This could so easily be oh, it's just okay. But it was really good. It was really enjoyable. Like I say, I've heard nothing but good reviews, and the reviews live up to it. It was a great experience. I really enjoyed what the children got out of it. I got a lot out of it. Enjoyable time had by all. Like I say, we would definitely go back under the right circumstances. Oh my days. I've probably said this before, but recently the podcast has been knocking the absolute crap out of me. I don't know if I talk too fast. I don't know. I think it's a thing where I drink loads and loads of coffee to try and get me through it. And I think I talk too fast, and basically I'm like passing out from lack of oxygen or something like that. I don't know. So that is the week. We're going to go on to the entertainment stuff. A little bit to go through. One of the games I've got to talk about is a big one. It's a big old doozy, this one. So anyway, let's get motoring. A little while ago, I listened to a podcast. The podcast gave me an idea. The idea was to up my treadmill time. The other part of the idea from off the back of the podcast was to add like an incentive. So I had an amazing idea. There's a TV show that I'd wanted to watch, but it wasn't free on anything. So I was going to have to buy it. And I was like, right, here's the deal. If I'm going to buy it, I have to be on the treadmill to watch it. And I have to be on the treadmill for a second time to be allowed to watch it. Bing, bang, bosh, done. So I paid the money because it was something like £8 for 10 episodes. In hindsight, could have paid something like £3 a month for 3 months for the streaming service it's on. Realised afterwards that would have been a better deal. Although I get to keep it, so you know, swings roundabouts, isn't it? I bought season 1 of the Tulsa King, which, if you know what that is, it's and if you don't know what it is, Sylvester Stallone TV show where he plays a mob gangster who did 25 years in prison for keeping his mouth shut. That old chestnut comes out of prison, and his mob family basically say, look, there's nothing here for you, but if you want to go to Tulsa, which is in Oklahoma, you can have the whole city. And he's like, but there's nothing there. And they're like, yeah, but it's a whole city, and we're giving it to you. So he takes his few belongings, heads over to Tulsa. And that's that, basically. I've watched the first 2 episodes. Some of the problems with the show are, I feel it was maybe set at a time that might be as little as a couple of years ago. It feels like it's trying to tell a story that doesn't apply now, which is weird. Like, he sort of like does the sort of protection racket on a weed shop. But I think the sort of the perspective of everything outside of America is the weed's legal in America. So doing like a protection, like, oh, you know, they could come and steal your money, and like the gangs and all this, and the guy that owns the shop's like, there aren't any gangs. He's like, yeah, but you know, the government could come and take your money. It's like, but it's legal, so it feels weird. And maybe that's wrong. I'm probably wrong in that. Maybe it's not legal in that state. But it feels weird when your perception of that country and its laws are that it's basically legal. The other thing that's a little bit off about it as a show is it's a commentary on today's society. But it feels off the mark. One of the things in the first episode is Sylvester Stallone's character sends off his new friend / employee / whatever to buy a vehicle, and the guy is a black man, and the guy comes back the next day without the car, and he's like, "What happened?" And the man says, I couldn't buy it. They wouldn't let me buy the car. It's like, oh, why not? Like, because I'm a black man, and they presume I'm a drug dealer. Now, again, I know it's America, and I appreciate that, not everything's all hunky-dory in that country with certain subjects. It's 2023, 2024, around the time this program was made. It feels a little off the mark because it's not super believable nowadays that would still be a thing. And, he's like, oh, let's go there and we'll sort this out. And the guy's there and he's got a cowboy hat. And it's like, I see that it could be possible, but I don't believe it to be possible. You know, that kind of thing. Outside of that, it's actually been really enjoyable. There are a lot of sort of commentaries around mobile phones and, you can get an app for that, and Uber, and you can't get a reusable coffee cup, and you can't do anything with cash nowadays. And so the old man in me kind of likes that. Bearing in mind, here is a thing, something that I don't actually like that I do. I went into a shop yesterday, walked through the door, there was a sign saying, due to a technical difficulty, we are cash only. And I was like, cool, I travelled all the way here for the specific reason of coming here to buy something. I don't carry cash. And if I'm honest, I don't know anybody that really does at this point in time. Like, I understand it. I'm all for it, but it's unfortunately one of the conveniences that I have fallen into. So yeah. As a show, there's a couple of things that have felt off, but everything else feels good, feels fun. A couple of sort of people that have been in it who are people you'd recognise, kind of thing. There was a subject that I was like, this one feels way off, this does. Sylvester Stallone's character meets lady in a certain situation. The lady takes a liking to him, and they take themselves off to Sylvester Stallone's hotel room. And the next day, or later that night or whatever, she's like, oh, this was fun, but I should probably go. And then they get into a conversation about how old he is. And he reveals that he's 75, and she has a bit of a meltdown, and she's like, I can't believe it, you're 75, and all this, that, and the other, and blah, 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 blah. And basically does a runner. It feels a little strange to me when somebody, an actor, an actress, however we're going with that these days, comments, or is their character is commenting on somebody's age when they don't look their age, shall we say. There may or may not have been some surgery involved. There may or may not have been some chemical injections of some description, shall we say. And it's almost comedic when the character's like, I mean, this guy he was so old and I can't believe how old he was. And I'm like, yes. It's awful being old, isn't it? Maybe he should do something like, have some surgery or some Botox maybe. So yes, another weird kind of random sort of thing. I'm enjoying it. I'm going to keep watching it. And we'll see sort of how this unfolds. I have watched 2 more episodes of Series 3 of The Bear. One was super uncomfortable. One of the characters had to call their mother, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, who has been in one other episode, which was this insane episode in first or second series, can't quite remember. It was big, it's one of the big episodes. It was just really difficult to watch. Jamie Lee Curtis's character in this reminds me a little bit too much of my own mother. And the situation that was presented was the mother of 2/3 of the characters in it turns up to give help, support, guidance, and all those sorts of things, whilst her daughter is in labour. Difficult enough to watch, like somebody going through the process of being in labour without the added pressure, shall we say. I spent a lot of the episode saying to Lana, I was like, it's making me feel sick. That sort of like, feel like you can't breathe, that oppression, that sort of like, oh God, this is just so difficult to watch. In a good and bad way. Admittedly, it's probably been one of the better episodes of the series, but not for the right reason, kind of thing. And then that was episode 8. I then watched episode 9. I believe there's only one more episode, and quite frankly, I'll be glad to get it watched. Episode 9, yet again, back to what the fuck is it we're actually watching here? What the fuck is it we're actually doing here? Why are we all putting our time and effort into this to get nothing out the other side? This has truly been a TV series, a series of a TV show that has lived up to the reviews, and the reviews were not good. It's such a shame when a TV series loses its way. So, yeah. As previously mentioned, went to the cinema. I took 5 children to the cinema, 3 of my own, 2 additionals. It's one of those things I like to think. I always like to think I can do these things. I'm always like, yeah, I can do this. I've got 4 children of my own. It's easy peasy. I can make this work. It's always then a thing where I'm swiftly reminded that I am a mentalist who loves chaos. And ultimately, I think I've said before, you can control your own children to a degree. You can't. Other people's children are a bit like a monkey with a handgun. You don't know that the gun's going to go off. But we all survived. We came out the other side of it, and it was a win. We went to see Despicable Me 4. couple of my children keep going in phases with films. 1 minute it's all about the Trolls, next minute it's all about the Minions, the next minute it's Despicable Me, the next minute it's Descendants, and so on and so on and so on. My middle daughter has been obsessed about Despicable Me 4 since the first moment it was mentioned. The weirdest thing about it was mentioned like a year ago. It got a super early trailer and then just was like, oh yeah, it's coming out in a year. Good luck with dealing with your children until then. So there's been that aspect. Like, she's asked me every few minutes whether it's out yet, or when it's coming out, and we really sort of zoned in. And I was like, look, by the time some holidays roll around, we can go and see it. I arranged for additional children to go, and off we went to the cinema. Managed to get a couple of free cinema tickets through the grandparent unit, which, again, always a massive help when 6 of you go off to the cinema. So, Despicable Me 4, the 4th Despicable Me. I have seen Despicable Me end to end. I can tell you what happened in it, etc. And from that point on, I have seen snippets of Despicable Me 2, 3, the Minions. Me and my middle daughter sat down to watch Minions Rise of Gru. So technically I have seen it. Couldn't tell you a single thing that happened in it. If I had to describe Despicable Me 4 in as little words as possible, those words would be cash grab. Honestly, not entirely sure the point to the film outside of that sole reason. There was a thing about, not a spoiler because it's all over, but there was a thing about them turning some of the minions into superheroes. There you go. So they use science, they're going to turn some of the minions into superheroes. Looking back, that had zero relevance on any part of the film. It was literally just, we're doing this so we can put the superhero minion characters on things to sell merchandise. That was the only reason for it. Outside of that, the main probably the main story, from what I can think, was they've managed to find a way for Gru to go back to being a bad guy in a way. He gets blackmailed into doing a thing. So it allows him the opportunity to be a bad guy, kind of. Outside of that, yeah, it was literally, it was just, we're not here to tell you an amazing story. We're not here to sell you on these fantastic visuals. We are literally here to take money out of your wallet. Largely forgettable would be another way to describe it. Honestly, let's just slap another number on another one, shall we? I do understand. I do get it. Just keep churning it out. Kids are going to want to see it. Parents are going to have to take them. It's all money, money, and money, money, money. In fact, let's have a look, shall we? Fucking monitor. Fuck's sake. You move something and then never, ever goes back right. The film's been out a few weeks at this point. Despicable Me 4. Gross. Ha ha! $631.8 million. in global collections with a contribution of $276.8 million in the United States alone. That right there tells you everything you need to know. I'd love to give it a score. I'd love to be like, oh, it's a solid 6 out of 10. It's a solid 7 out of 10, whatever. Honestly, I don't think it matters. And I couldn't give you a score. It was just me sitting there going, all right. I honestly thought I was going to spend the money wisely to have a nap. That's how I thought it was going to go. It didn't. Now then, let's get into the real nitty-gritty about life. The PC I'm using right now has recently had an upgrade in the last week or so. There is a long version of the story and there's a short version of the story. The long version is when the PC was originally built, there was no need to put a graphics card in it. I know what you're thinking. Why? Because what it was built for didn't require a graphics card. Didn't need it. So why spend the extra money for something not needed? This theory was tried and tested and worked. Then somebody decided, hey, if I had a graphics card, I could play PC VR games. This was also at a point in time where you could not buy a PC graphics card for love nor money because of a certain pandemic and everybody being locked in their houses. Graphics cards were like hen's teeth. However, a friend of mine was like, I've got a graphics card that's sitting in a box right now. I'll happily stick it in your computer if you would like me to. It's not going to set the world on fire. It may set your computer on fire. And I said, if it's better than not having one, that sounds amazing. Thank you very much. The PC got upgraded to have a graphics card and worked like an absolute beauty. And has done so for several years at this point. A very similar conversation to that one ensued. Can't believe that graphics card is still going. I do have another graphics card in a box. It would be an upgrade on the one you've got because I have recently upgraded mine. We can do that if you want. And I went, yeah, cool. Sounds awesome. Sounds amazing. And then a certain game got a release date announcement. And I said, do you remember the conversation about a particular graphics card? How about we get that done real quick? So Sam came with his boxes of graphics cards, installed graphics card, gave the computer a clean, gave me a list of things that the computer might do with a new graphics card, all of which it didn't, and it just literally said, new graphics card. Cool, let's do this. Now I know what you're thinking. You've got a new piece of technology. How are you going to test it? Well, as with anything, if you've got a new surround sound system for your TV, for your movie watching, you pop yourself bad boys in and you press play. Simple as that. If you've got a new graphics card in your PC, that's right, it's Half-Life Alyx, ladies and gentlemen. Half-Life Alyx, the most labour-intensive game there is, and it's several years old. Pop that bad boy on. Oh my days, that game looked amazing. Cutscene at the beginning where the character who is talking in the cutscene looks like a different person. I was just like, that person looks genuinely different. It was mental. There was a point in time when I was like holding the gun, Alex's gun, and I was turning it over in the virtual hand. And then I realised that you could see the dirt under her nails, and you could also see that some of the nails were like not like, I don't know, manicured or whatever. They were all like jagged and rough in places, and I was like, this is mental. Gave Goodman Contracts a run out, handled that like a dream, absolutely banging. So everybody say big thank you to Sam for the graphics card loan. And the installation of said graphics card, because I won't know where to start with something like that. So, I know what you're waiting for. 53 minutes in, and you're like, come on, dude. We all know what we're waiting for. Let's just get it done. That's right. You want to know if I bought Drop Dead the Cabin on the Quest 3. And the answer is yes, I did. And yes, I've played it, and yes, I've enjoyed it. What I haven't enjoyed is the fact that I can't do the room scaling thing. And it won't tell me why. So there. Played it. I'm enjoying it. I will go back and play it again. I am struggling to work out 100% what to do, but I'm sure it'll come to me at some point. I know I'm trying to find a third battery, which I can't. But yeah, I would have liked to have done the mixed reality side of it, but alas, I can't set up the room scaling. Another game, you say? Any other games this week? I don't think there were any other games this week. Something that came out on Tuesday. No, it wasn't Tuesday, it was Wednesday. Yeah, same day as my anniversary, so I got to spend a week saying to anybody that will listen, I can't wait for Wednesday. Oh, why? Because your anniversary? No, because Into the Radius 2 gets released. That's right. It finally happened. Early access for Into the Radius 2 went live. Went live 2 hours earlier. Yes, that's right. I was counting it down in hours and checking on Steam, and Steam had a countdown, and it kept counting down, and then 2 hours before it was due to end, game was live, and I purchased the shit out of it. And do you know something? Do you know something? I was told it was going to be 40 quid, but A, it wasn't, and B, there was a special promotion on that if you bought it within the first few days of release, you got even more money off it. So I paid less than £30 for it. Honestly. Chef's kiss. That is unfortunately where the chef's kiss ends, ladies and gents. Into the Radius 2 is a different beast. Some good, some bad. Now then, a caveat. This game is in early access. There's kind of this sort of feeling around it where if you slag off early access, you're the bad guy. A few games I've played recently in early access have had sort of like these disclaimers at the start of the game that do say, this game is early access, please don't criticize it. If you have genuine bugs and problems, let us know, but don't run around the internet saying how terrible it is, because it's just the first iteration. So am I about to be the bad guy? Maybe. Let's talk. Some of the stuff I've done with this game is I've tried to stay away from any spoilers. It was that big a deal for me that I wanted to be as fresh as I could be. Yes, I did see bits and pieces. Yes, I did see the new trailer that was released for release day. It looked great. It looked amazing. It looked wonderful. The new base is phenomenal. phenomenal. The difference between the first base and the new base in Into the Raiders 2, they are worlds apart. It is a thing of beauty, and I am not in any way joking. It is hands down the single best part of the game. That may allude to some of the problems. If the base is some of the best parts of the game, what about the game itself? Touch wood, I haven't been hit with too many glitches or bugs or things like that. I had a problem last night where I had to do a mission which involved collecting 3 items. I collected the 3 items and then fell out of the sky, landed on the ground, died, and the game didn't reset the items, so I could no longer collect them when it reloaded. I had to go back 2 or 3 saves to the start of that section and redo it again. I lost a chunk of time. Things that I like. It's a better looking game. It's a beautiful, beautiful game. The radius itself looks amazing. It has changed. The physical radius that's in the sky has changed. Now it looks more like a planet rather than just a disc in the sky. Some of the areas around the base look amazing. It's almost like reminds me of the Halo from Halo. Almost like you're looking up and it's coming back on itself. Just looks phenomenal. The mimic creature thing from the first one has had a big update. You can physically see like bits of scrap in it. They're different colours and textures and stuff. They move differently. They're a lot harder to deal with. When you shoot enemies, they spray almost like lava, like little bits of lava, so the ground lights up as if it's been sprayed with like lava. All these amazing new touches. Something that's, for want of a better way of putting it, odd. I think they're trying to make out the enemies are Nazis, which feels weird in some ways. But you know, who doesn't love shooting Nazis in the face? Let's put it that way. So, what is wrong with the game? Well, it's an early access, so nothing. But if I did have to say something, I have had some of the most traumatic gaming experiences ever in the last few days playing this game. I spent 40 minutes stuck in a shed. That has been hands down one of the most traumatic gaming experiences I've had. The realization that, yes, you can just run away from enemies or run past enemies, came at a much needed time, namely being stuck in a shed. And then the new, more recent realization that ultimately you just have to get on and deal with the enemies. Everything in the world is designed to kill you. The anomalies, they're everywhere, and you don't know that most of the time until it's too late. There are these electric cubes that look like a dice float around. They're invisible when you don't know they're there. You just hear them mostly, and then they explode electricity everywhere. You end up in particular areas, like when you unlock the second area of the game, you end up in these areas that they're just teeming with enemies, and you're there with your little pistol, and you're double-barreled shotgun, and you're like, I have definitely bitten off more than I can chew here. A game where previously in the Quest standalone version of Into the Radius, I used to save it when I'd leave the base, save it when I get back, kind of thing. In Into the Radius on the PC, which I bought more recently and played, it was a lot harder. It's a lot harder version in a variety of different ways, requiring saving that little bit more. Into the Radius 2, I have to save about every 4 steps. And I know what you're thinking. Well, it's clearly an exaggeration. It isn't. I would love to see at this point in time the number of times I've died in this game, because it's got to be in the hundreds. There's a lot to go through, and I don't want to feel like a negative Nancy. Where are we? It's Monday today, so let's talk about Saturday. So Saturday night, I put in a good couple of hours into the game and honestly thought that I was probably going to give up on it and never go back to it. Not in like a rage quit kind of sense, more in I just don't feel this game is for me. I feel it is far too difficult. I can't do difficult games. It started to reek of like a Souls-like game. Because it was just so insanely difficult. Like I say, I was traumatised by being stuck in a shed for 40 minutes. Last night brought with it a couple of realisations. Those realisations were, sometimes you have to knuckle down and just do the work. And in this scenario, the work was kill a load of freaking enemies in a particular area so you can go to that area. So, crack on. If you need to drop a clip so you can load another clip into your gun and work out where you dropped your clip later, do that. If you need to put a shotgun in one hand and a handgun in the other just to get through the next 2 minutes, do that. It's that kind of thing, which Into the Radius, the first one, never felt like. You know, there were times when you get into a bit of a firefight maybe, but you always felt in control. You had a plethora of weapons at your disposal, and those weapons had been tuned and they were high powered and they had additional add-ons and you had additional ammunition types, etc, etc, etc. This is the opposite. It feels very much like the enemy is in control and you are just fighting for survival. Last night when I was playing, I realised that maybe that was actually the idea. I went to an area, I had to go and pick up an artefact. When I got there, the artefact is in the centre of what I've dubbed an anomaly field. I tried multiple different ways to get to it and couldn't. So I just walked away. I was like, this mission is going to give me almost nothing. And I am going to go through multiple health packs, like the health injectors, for what is ultimately nothing. So I'm just going to walk away and go and do something else. And I'm probably not going to come back until I can find out how to deal with this. Last night the game shifted on me. I did a series of things. I worked on the principle I was just going to sort of grind, get some money, get some supplies in the bag, so to speak. But what actually happened was I realised that I had a mission which was going to increase my security level. Increased security level means increased equipment. Increased equipment, better all round. So I decided to just go for it. Took me 2 solid hours of playing to get it sort of done. That wasn't just that mission. I had done other stuff, but a big chunk of that was that mission. And although it was hard and it was stressful and I had to die multiple times to get it done, And coming away from it, I ended up in a village that was populated solely by multiple enemies, which I'd sort of kill some and run away from some, and escape through the window of a house at one point. The feeling of achievement was there. And whereas Saturday night I was feeling like I didn't like the game and didn't want to play the game anymore, and maybe I'd just wait for a version 1. Obviously, I've paid my money at this point in time. I can wait for another version of the game, another incarnation of the game. Last night, I was a bit more like, I'm kind of getting into it. Couple of other things. Because I leveled up, I could buy a new gun. And I bought a gun that I'd had in the first one. It was like my trusty firearm. Had difficulty equipping mods to it. Turned out you just hold it somewhere in the vicinity and let go. Which I'm sure the game must have told me at some point, but at that point in time I didn't know, and it became quite annoying. So, if I'm honest, I am actually looking forward to trying out some of the level 2 stuff. I am going to go back to doing a bit of grinding to get some money, because there's other weapons I want to get. A new backpack and possibly a new chest rig to sort of be able to store more stuff on my person. So yes, not everything's terrible. Not everything is awesome either. Final little mention of something. I did a humble bundle for some sports games. Yes, I know, me and sport. One of those games is a game I own. I know, shocking. I bought a game I own already. 2K23, the golf game, the Tiger Woods-esque golf game. And I bought it through the bundle. I paid £9, I think, for something like 5 games. And I got it installed on the Steam Deck. I've been absolutely obsessed with it. And I said to Leanne at one point, I was like, do you know something? I honestly think this is the perfect combination for these two things. The golf game and the Steam Deck. Perfect combination. I own it on the PlayStation, and although I have played it, I've played a very small amount of it. And I've always been like, I'll go back to that game at some point. I love a golf game. Going all the way back to Tiger Woods, like 06, 07 sort of area. I love a golf game. But I haven't gone back and played it, even though I own it. Yet I've played probably 4 times as much on the Steam Deck in the couple of days I've owned it. Like, any available opportunity where I've had even 5 or 10 minutes, I'm like, I can put that on, play a couple of holes, and turn it off, and it'll remember where I got up to. It's the perfect combination. So yeah, just wanted to give a cursory mention to that. That right there is the podcast. 1 hour, 12 minutes of me having only a couple of things to talk about this week. The man has a sickness, ladies and gents. Right, that's me done. Peace out, y'all. Take it easy. Well, there we go. Managed to fill an hour of... It was some sort of content, was it not? Anyway. Come back next week, see if it gets any better. How about that? Before you leave me, leave the podcast. Turn it off if you haven't already. Please do like, share, subscribe and comment. Leave a review where you can leave a review. Check out the website, thecookiecast.com. There we've got social media links and an email button, and that way you can get in touch with us. And if you feel like you want to do that, do. We'll get you on as a guest. You want to talk about computer games? Come on as a guest. Just saying. Right, I'm going to get out of here. Get out of your hair. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And until next time, I'm going to say bye, and I'll see you then.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to this awesome cookie cast.